So we're watching round 10 of LAIC between Chuppa Cross and Alex Gomez. And Alex Gomez has a team of Dondozo, Dark Urshifu, Flutter, Heatran, Salamence and Rillaboom. And then Chuppa has a team of Chien, Flutter, Rillaboom, Water Urshifu, Tornadus and Hisuian Arcanine. So Chuppa's running the exact same team he used to win regionals. I think all the sets are the same as well, but I'm not 100% sure. I mean, Alex has a very cool, bulky team with a Yawn Dondozo, Magma Storm Heatran to be able to lock things in, support Salamence. So in this matchup, I feel like Dondozo is very important for Alex. It's very physically bulky, and Chuppa's main damage dealers tend to be physical attackers. His only big damage dealer that's a special attacker is Flutter, which will just get one shot by Heavy Slam. So I feel like Dondozo is definitely coming here. I think Salamence is also very good. It's quite good defensively into Urshifu and Rillaboom. It can match Tailwind if Chuppa brings Tornadus, but I also think it's very possible for Chuppa to not bring Tornadus. So then getting a Tailwind up when your opponent doesn't have Tailwind is very good. And the Intimidate is obviously very good for supporting the rest of the team. And then I feel like Flutter should also be coming. It's just good in general. It can threaten a one-shot onto Chien, but the Chien would have to be -1 for the Flutter to live. It can threaten... it just threatens damage onto everything. Fairy Ghost coverage is very strong. And then the last slot, I feel like it should be one of Rillaboom and Heatran. If you bring the Heatran, you are going to have to be more careful around the Urshifu in Tailwind, but you do have Salamence and Dondozo to help versus that. And I guess you can Terra Grass for Heatran. And if you bring the Rillaboom, I think you're going to have to be a lot more careful around the opposing Rillaboom. So I feel like both can come here, but Heatran is probably a bit better because it can take hits better, and it's a good Fairy switch in, which is Alex's only Fairy resist. So yeah, I think those are the 4 that's coming, but I can see a Rillaboom coming as well. And then on Chuppa's side, so the Flutter looks very strong. It also depends if the booster energy is boosting speed or special attack. I think on this team it tends to be special attack. And as I said before, Alex only has 1 Fairy resist, and that is the Heatran. I think Rillaboom has to come because otherwise I don't think he can beat the Dondozo. I can see Flutter and Rillaboom coming. I think that's quite a good lead as well. I think Chien Rillaboom is also quite a good lead. I think both leads threaten the Salamence heavy, which I think is quite a possible lead from Alex. So I think that those 3 should come no matter what. And then probably Arcanine or Urshifu. I'm not sure which is better. Probably Arcanine, just because it can do more damage in general. Extreme speed could be really useful. Yeah, so I think I'd pick Arcanine over Urshifu. Tornadus could also come, but I feel like it's not threatening enough damage. So from Chuppa, I expect Rillaboom plus Chien will Flutter lead, with the other of Chien, Flutter in the back and Arcanine. And we see Chuppa lead, Flutter Rillaboom, as Alex leads Dondozo, Salamence. So I think Chuppa is in a much better position here. He can probably fairly safely fake out the Dondozo and Dazzling Gleam, and we do see it is special attack boosting Flutter, which I think is probably worse for Alex. So I think that a Gleam fake out is fairly safe, but he could try and read into that. I think the Dondozo protect is quite obvious, and then maybe a Salamence switch. So you could try and stop that from happening. And then from Alex's side, you probably want to protect the Dondozo and switch Salamence. I don't know what you'd switch Salamence into though. Probably Heatran. If you've got Heatran, I think you switch in the Heatran here. It's fairly safe. You can save the Intimidate for later. We do see the Salamence switching out. What's it into? It is into Heatran. It's pretty safe in this situation. There's no high horsepower on Rillaboom. But Flutter does go for a Shadow Ball, but Alex does decide not to protect his Dondozo, which is really good here, as Chuppa just ignores it, probably expecting the protect. So this might be a Heavy Slam going into Flutter that could just one-shot it. And then Chuppa does U-turn, and we do see he has Urshifu Tornadus in the back, so I was wrong about the other 2 Pokemon I felt like he should have brought. Obviously Chuppa knows how to play his team better than me. And we see the Heavy Slam going into the Flutter and it lives on. So that is such a bulky Flutter That wasn't even a -1 Dondozo. Not that it could be -1 because it's oblivious anyway. So that's really showing how that Flutter is trained. So now The Heatran is heavily threatened on Alex's side. But the Dondozo is basically not threatened at all. You could probably get a Yawn off if you want, or you could try and Heavy Slam to pick up the Flutter main. But if I was Chuppa, I'd probably just Surging Strikes for Heatran and bring in Rillaboom. It feels fairly safe. Maybe bring in Tornadus to play around a potential Terror and Magma Storm. And then if I'm Alex, I'd maybe switch back in the Salamence, maybe Terror and Magma Storm. And then probably just Heavy Slam or Yawn. Setting up a Yawn trap could be quite nice to just force the Urshifu to have to switch out next turn. We do see the Terror coming out from Alex's Heatran. As the Surging Strikes goes into it, it's not going to do that much damage. It does eat the Citrus Berry as well. So this should be a very good turn for Alex, depending on what he does. And if he hits Magma Storm, if he went for it. I imagine he is Magma Storming. But it is only 75% accurate, so it can miss a lot of the time. And we do see a Magma Storm, and it does hit the Urshifu. So this Urshifu is stuck in. It's not doing too much damage to the Urshifu, but it's stuck in taking damage each turn. And we see a Yawn as well. So the Urshifu is going to have to go to sleep next turn, because it can't switch out. And it's yawned. So there is no way for Chuppa to stop this Urshifu from going to sleep. So I feel like if I'm Alex, it's a fairly safe Yawn into Tornadus maybe, or like a Heavy Slam into it and switch into Salamence. Salamence wouldn't be that threatened by the Urshifu. You get an Intimidate, which means it's close combat, would do a lot less into the Dondozo, if that's what happens. And we do see the Salamence switch. And if you're Chuppa, you probably just Bleakwind Storm and Surging Strikes because you have no better play to do. You could taunt the Dondozo to stop any other Yawns, and I think actually taunting the Dondozo is probably safer. We do see a Bleakwood Storm close combat, and that does a lot of damage. That is a crit. That is huge for Chuppa. Without that crit, it probably wouldn't be in another Bleakwind Storm range, and could probably just start roosting. But depending on how fast this Salamence is, it might still be able to roost if it outspeeds the Tornadus, as most of Tornaduses on this team tend to run no speed, sometimes even minus speed IVs, so then their Rain Dance can go after sunny days. The Tornadus is yawn, so it has to switch out to stop itself from sleeping. So if I'm Alex, I feel like you could just yawn that slot and roost, and either the Tornadus is going to sleep or the thing coming in is yawned and will have to be switched out again. And we do see Chuppa switch out into Rillaboom. Probably the best switch out because you don't want to lose your Flutter main. We don't see a roost from the Salamence, I guess wanting to be able to Intimidate later. We just see it switch out. The Flutter main comes in, so we've seen all four of Alex's Pokemon. And a Yawn does go into the Rillaboom. So the Rillaboom is in a pretty tough spot where it wants to... It's in a good spot to do damage, but that does mean it would have to go to sleep. Alex does not have his Terror anymore, so this Dondozo is threatened by the Rillaboom, but it could just protect this turn, and either the Rillaboom has to switch, or it's going to sleep. And we do just see it switch out. Also, Alex's Flutter main is in a very good position to just Gleam or Moonblast. There's no reason not to. Alex does bring back in his Salamence just to get Intimidate. Probably so then he definitely lives a Grassy Glide plus an Aqua Jet, if that's what came out. We do see the Gleam come out, get rid of the Urshifu, and do an okay amount of damage to this Rillaboom. As this Rillaboom U-turns, so stopping it from dying to the Yawn, it also means it takes the Gleam damage instead of what it's switching into. And this might be quite a safe switch into Flutter main from Chuppa. But we do see switches into Tornadus. If Chuppa expects his Flutter main to outspeed Alex's Flutter main, he could probably switch back in Flutter main and like Shadow Ball Bleakwind Storm. Or he could switch in Rilla and like Bleakwood Storm Woodhammer or Grassy Glide. It depends on who he thinks is faster out of Salamence and Tornadus. With how they're both built, I expect them both to be quite bulky. So it's hard to tell which one is going to be faster. This position does feel very tough for Chuppa because he doesn't overspeed tiers on Tornadus versus Salamence. He can't really stop this Flutter main from gleaming unless he Tailwind, he goes for Tailwind Woodhammer. And if he goes for that, he's leaving the Salamence alone, which could roost, which could match Tailwinds. I feel like Alex should just Gleam and Roost. I think that's a pretty safe play. Maybe, I mean, it's locked into Gleam. Maybe it switches out. And if it does, it should be into Heatran, I think. But it could also be into Dondozo. He does switch into Heatran. He double switches. I feel like Alex has had 2 opportunities now to roost. And not been able to. Maybe he does expect the Tornadus to be faster. Alex probably knows the team better than me. Well, he obviously knows the team better than me. So he probably knows that the Salamence is slower and that's why he's not roosting. But still, 2 times where the Salamence could have just roosted, got up to a really healthy amount of HP and been really useful for the rest of the game. But this does mean he can now Intimidate. So that he can Intimidate the Rillaboom to make the Dondozo more safe. The Heatran being Terra Grass means it will probably just die to a Bleak Wind, so it has to protect or switch this turn. But it could also just stay in and Alex could sack it. I don't think it's going to be that useful for the rest of the game. It might be for the Rillaboom, but it will just die to the Flutter main or the Tornadus. I also think switching in Salamence and like Yawning isn't an awful play from Alex. But we do see a Protect coming out from the Heatran. We just see a double Protect, so I guess he's stalling a turn of Tailwind and just seeing what Chuppa wants to do. Chuppa does just go for Bleak Wind Storm and for Woodhammer into the Dondozo. Alex does also get Grassy Terrain recovery back, which probably doesn't matter. So it does again feel like Alex is in a very tough position where Chuppa can fairly safely just Bleak Wind Storm, Woodhammer. I think the Dondozo would live a -1 Woodhammer plus Bleak Wind Storm, but not on a lot. And then all of Alex's Pokemon will be very low health, probably in Flutter main range. So I think this is quite a tough situation where he's forced to switch. I think he has to switch Heatran into Salamence to get me Intimidate. But that means he's losing Salamence, and he's still going to take a lot of damage on this Dondozo. I'm not 100% sure it's living, but I would expect it to. But we do see a Bleak Wind Storm miss onto the Salamence. That is huge. The Salamence would have just gone down that turn. At a speed drop on Dondozo, that doesn't matter. And then the Woodhammer, how much is this going to do? A lot of damage, getting it into the red, but it is living. And what does the Dondozo do? Just yawns. It just yawns, forcing the Tornadus to probably have to switch next turn. So, if you're Chuppa, the question is, do you switch? Because you could just Bleak Wind Storm and you're almost guaranteed to kill the Salamence or whatever that slot is. I don't remember how much HP his Flutter main is on, but the Salamence can't protect, so you could Bleak Wind Storm to KO that slot. But that does mean you've then got a Sleeping Tornadus, which isn't very good. And if you're Alex, do you Roost this turn? Because if you think the Tornadoes are switching out, that's a free Roost. But if it doesn't, you could just lose both your Pokemon here if you attack with both. I feel like a Protect from Dondozo should come out, but maybe not. Maybe you Yawn and Roost if you're Alex. We do see Chuppa does go for the switch, bringing in Flutter main, and the Dondozo does Protect. And what does the Salamence go for? It is staying in. Is it roosting? Although this roost wouldn't actually be that good, because now it's threatened by the Flutter main. So this roost, although I was saying it's probably his best play, he's now still very threatened by just a Moonblast Woodhammer. And I'm not really sure what he can do to stop that. Huh. I feel like maybe now you need to decide who's going to be the most useful on your team. And I feel like if I'm Alex, I would just switch out Salamence into Heatran and just sack both my Pokemon. And then when you've got your Flutter main Salamence back in, you can just Gleam and Tailwind. And if your Flutter main's faster than their Flutter main, you should win from there. But if you're slower, you probably lose. But I don't really see how else Alex would win this. I feel like Chuppa can safely just Terra and Gleam here, and then probably Wood Hammer, and there's not much Alex can do to stop that play from happening. I don't see a situation where Alex doesn't lose both his Pokemon without a Double Protect. We do see the Salamence switch. I think this should be into Heatran, and it is into Heatran. I think Alex's double is sacking both his Pokemon, and I think that is the right play. And it is the Flutter main going for the Terra Fairy, just so he can do that extra damage. Doesn't do anything defensively here. It might versus the opposing Flutter main, but he's so low he'd probably die to a Dazzling Beam anyway. But Dondozo goes for a Double Protect. Doesn't get it. I actually think that might have been a misplay. I feel like you want both to go down here. I think the Dondozo has done everything it can this game. So we see the Gleam come out. It kills Heatran, and then the Rillaboom is still yet to attack. U-turns. Ooh. Oh, that U-turn was so good. That U-turn was so good. That U-turn, I think, has just won Chuppa the game. Because now he goes into Tornadus and he gets the priority Tailwind, and he can just Gleam and kill the Salamence. And there's nothing Alex can do to stop that. So actually, it looks like Alex did need that Double Protect. I was wrong with it being a bad play because it stops the U-turn. And then if he doesn't get the U-turn there, then you bring in your Flutter main and you just Gleam and maybe bring in Salamence. So here, I think you probably just Gleam Tailwind. I think you could Moonblast for Salamence if you're scared of it living, but I think it's very unlikely to live a Dazzling Gleam Terra Fairy Moonblast. Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam, I mean. So we do just see a Tailwind come out from Chuppa. And then a Dazzling Gleam. Is it going to pick up the KO on Salamence? I think it should. And it does. And it does okay damage to the Flutter main. So now Rillaboom should be able to just pick up the Flutter main in the end game. We see Moonblast come out. Kills the opposing Flutter main. And now Rillaboom comes in. It should outspeed the Flutter main. And Wood Hammer should kill it. And that should be game 1 for Chuppa. So we see the Rillaboom come in. I imagine it's just a Wood Hammer, Bleak Windstorm. Chuppa, Alex's Flutter main is Specs, so it can't protect, can't do anything like that. Even if it could, there's not much it can do because it would stall out Tailwind and then Tornadus just sets up Tailwind again. So if you're Alex, how do you adjust to win this game? Chuppa, I think, brought an interesting 4 as well. It wasn't what I expected. So with those 4, could you make a difference with what you brought? Your own Rillaboom would be very good from Alex into those 4. Like, you only have to worry about the Tornadus, but you are Assault Vest Rillaboom. So you're going to be able to take a hit. So maybe Alex should be bringing the Rillaboom instead of the Heatran. Would it be instead of Heatran? I think it has to be instead of Heatran. I think the other 3 Pokemon are too good. I also think some of Alex's plays could have been a bit better. Well, maybe not better, but I think there was a couple of times where if he called it right, when he went for roosts or like some switches, he could have won the game. So I think both players played very well. I think there was just a few turns Alex could have gotten better, and I feel like the Rillaboom should be coming instead of a Heatran. And then there's the question, is Chuppa going to switch up what he does? If I was him, I wouldn't. You know, you win game 1. I usually, when I've won game 1, unless I see a clear problem, I'm just going to throw the same stuff at them again and see what they can do. Again, I think you can bring all 4 if you're Chuppa. All 6 Pokemon if you're Chuppa. You can bring the Chien-Pao. The Chien-Pao is actually very strong here. Especially if you bait out a Terra Grass very early from the Heatran. So Chuppa, I feel like he has to bring the Flutter main and the Rillaboom, but I think the other 2 can be anything. And Tornadus, Tornadus and Urshifu put in a lot of work. Well, the Urshifu actually didn't do that much, but the Tornadus did. So maybe you replace the Urshifu with like Chien or Arcanine. And we see the leads come out. We see Heatran, Dondozo from Alex Gomez, and we see the Tornadus Urshifu from Chuppa. So Chuppa completely changing his lead. Alex bringing the Heatran as the lead instead of the... what's it called? What is it called? Instead of the Salamence. So this might be a fairly safe from Chuppa to just Surging Strikes the Heatran and Bleakwood Storm. If it terrors, it's weak to Bleakwood Storm. If it doesn't terror, it's weak to Surging Strikes. I also don't think Alex really has a switch in for this. And then worst case scenario, Alex yawns, but that's not too bad. You could also close combat if you're Chuppa. It does the same to a non-terror Heatran, but does more to a terror Heatran, but it is worse into some of the switch-ins, like a Flutter main, for example. And we do see the Salamence switch-in from Alex, taking Bleakwind Storm, not taking much from that. And then a close combat as well. This really doesn't do a lot of damage. And the Salamence is left on like 60 HP, and then the Dondozo is free to do what it wants. It wasn't really threatened anyway, and it just yawns. So maybe from there, Chuppa could have gone for a taunt onto Dondozo to stop that from happening, but I still agree with his play, and Bleakwood Storm still did okay damage. So now Chuppa is kind of forced to switch unless he wants a Sleeping Tornadus. And Alex is in a very good position where both his Pokemon aren't really threatened. He could maybe call a switch in and try and heavy slam one of the slots to catch a Flutter main, or he could just yawn the Tornadus slot to force it to switch again. And then I feel like with his Salamence, maybe he just roosts here. Maybe he switches out anticipating whatever Chuppa's going to go into, but it feels like you don't want to switch out the Salamence when it's in front of an Urshifu. And we do see Chuppa go into the Rillaboom. And also switch out the Urshifu into Flutter main. So a double switch from Chuppa, getting nothing this turn, but he's in a decent position. He does get the booster energy on the Flutter main, so if it ever switches out again, it's lost its booster energy. And we do see a Tailwind. I think that's quite a strong play. Next turn, the Heatran could probably come in. And we do see a Heavy Slam go into the Flutter main slot. That's probably in Air Slash range now. So the Salamence can probably Air Slash that and kill it. Although, with how bulky it is, maybe it isn't. It might be quite close. And now in this position, I feel like Heatran can come in fairly safely for Alex. Like, you could switch in Heatran and protect, but Chuppa might anticipate that and try and bring back in his Urshifu. So if I'm Alex, I think I'd bring in Heatran and protect the Dondozo. Unless you think Air Slash can pick up this Flutter main, which I'm not sure it can. And then if you're... And we do see the Salamence switch out into Heatran. It's fairly safe in this situation. Worst case is it's going to take a Shadow Ball. And we see a Terra coming out. Is this the... It is the Dondozo going for Terra Poison, which means it is going to resist any Grass type moves coming out. But I imagine this means he is going to KO the Flutter main this turn. This does mean the Dondozo now does not resist Surging Strikes, but I still don't think that's that bad. And a Fake Out comes out and a Shadow Ball, so that was a fairly good turn for Chuppa. Probably as good as he was going to get that turn. But Alex is now in a very good position where he can probably just Magma Storm a slot and yawn or Heavy Slam another. If I was Alex, I think I'd just Magma Storm the Rillaboom, Heavy Slam the Flutter main. There's really not much that can go too wrong with that play. The Magma Storm really covers switch-ins well, because either you're Magma Storming a Rillaboom, which is going to do a lot of damage, or you're going to be doing the residual damage with the Magma Storm. And then with the Dondozo slot, I think you could also yawn instead of Heavy Slam. I think Magma Storm, Rillaboom, Heavy Slam No, Magma Storm Rillaboom, Yawn Rillaboom is a pretty good play because it covers so many of Chuppa's potential plays. It covers any switch-ins that he could do. And we do see a Flash Cannon come out, so he doesn't go for Magma Storm. I would expect this now to be a Yawn. We see a U-turn coming out from the Rillaboom. Actually, that would have meant he could switch out of the Magma Storm. So maybe Alex saw that coming. But whatever comes in, I imagine is getting Yawned here. And him going for the Flash Cannon onto Fluttermane basically stopped the Fluttermane from doing any damage that turn, as Dondozo wouldn't outspeed it in Tailwind, but Heatran probably does. And now, Chuppa's got an interesting decision to make on what he brings in, because it probably is getting Yawned. But, if he goes into Urshifu, which he is, he can now threaten the Heatran next turn. So he could decide to just take the sleep on his Urshifu for Surging Strikes into the Heatran or a close combat. And then maybe like a Dazzling Gleam. Because that means either Alex loses his Heatran or he doesn't KO the opposing Fluttermane. But I don't know if Alex just stays in and Flash Cannons and, I don't know, Yawns again, you're basically trading a Fluttermane for a Heatran and a Sleeping Urshifu, which I don't think is a good trade for Chuppa. But I feel like he's quite behind in this position. He has to start doing something. This Dondozo is probably just going to be spamming Yawn for the rest of the game, and it's really going to be difficult to get rid of. So maybe he has to start targeting this Dondozo down, but I really don't think he has the damage to be able to stop it from doing what it wants to do. He does switch out the Fluttermane into Rillaboom. And Terra Waters, so Terra Watering to make sure he does a lot more damage into this Dondozo. We see no switches from Alex, so I imagine it's a Flash Cannon and a Yawn. Which I think is a fairly safe play, but that does mean it is a Magma Storm instead, catching the switcher. That is huge. That is going to do so much damage to this Rillaboom, and it's going to do damage over the time. We do see a Surging Strikes coming out into the Dondozo as well, doing decent damage, but I don't think it's enough. It's going to leave it on about 40%, and with the leftovers and the grassy terrain and not being threatened right now, it's going to get so much recovery. And we see the Yawn into the Rillaboom as well. That is a huge turn for Alex. The Dondozo is going to sleep. No, the Urshifu is going to sleep. This Rillaboom will have to U-turn out of the Yawn, but he could potentially just double protect to stop that U-turn. However, I do feel like Alex needs to start dealing with this Urshifu whilst it's asleep. It's the only thing that can realistically do good damage to his Dondozo. But he does not really have the damage to threaten it right now. Maybe Alex goes for like a Magma Storm onto the Urshifu and a switch with the Dondozo. We still haven't seen Alex's last Pokemon, but I imagine it is the Fluttermane. Maybe use the Dondozo to Yawn the Rillaboom slot if you think you're going to underspeed, so then you can Yawn whatever it U-turns into, as it probably is U-turning this turn. But then you are leaving this Urshifu to burn its sleep turns. So I think Alex has to start switching into things that can do damage to this Urshifu. And then if you're Chuppa, you probably just U-turn and you can't really do anything with the Urshifu. I think you just burn the turns whilst it's not threatened. We do see a switch coming out into the Salamence. Pretty good in this position. Gets the Intimidate on Urshifu, which probably doesn't matter that much now anyway, as it's probably only clicking Surging Strikes. It's taken its first turn of guaranteed sleep, and a Magma Storm comes out, which is going to do okay damage, but the residual damage is what's really important here. And then the Rillaboom does U-turn. It's going to take Rocky Helmet damage from that, so it's now very low. Probably in range of basically anything that can come out. But now, I think this is the last turn of Tailwind, and if it is, the Fluttermane can come in fairly safely. And probably just Moonblast the... You could Gleam to try and kill this Salamence, which could easily switch, or you could Shadow Ball the Heatran for damage, but that's still not going to do much damage. So I think if you're Heatran, I think if you're Chuppa, wait, is Tailwind still up? I don't think Tailwind's still up, so maybe this turn you just have to go for Surging Strikes onto Heatran and Gleam and just hope you wake up. I don't know if Chuppa has better options here. His Urshifu is now no longer weak to flying, so maybe you protect and Surging Strikes to burn another turn, but I feel like you're going to be taking too much damage. So I think if I was Chuppa, I would just go for the wake up. I think that's your best way of winning this game, is getting that 30% chance to wake up. And if you're Alex, do you bank on him not waking up, or do you try and play around a potential wake up? We do see the switch into Dondozo, so if there's a fairy move coming out, it is going to take this very well. But we see the Heatran stay in, so if this is a first time wake up, it is just going to go down. And does it? And it wakes up, going to just kill this Heatran, lose its Magma Storm, and now Chuppa is suddenly in such a good position. We still haven't seen Alex's last Pokemon. If it is that Fluttermane, it can probably come in and Specs Dazzling Gleam is going to do a lot. Will also depend on who's faster out of Chuppa and Alex's Flutters, but without the boost, Chuppa's Fluttermane probably can't threaten for one shot onto Alex's without an Aqua Jet as well, which probably is a fairly safe play, as the Dondozo can't threaten the Urshifu. So actually, I think here Chuppa should just protect the Urshifu and Shadow Ball with the Fluttermane. If his Fluttermane's faster, he gets Shadow Ball up, which should put it in Aqua Jet range, depending on how low it is. And if it doesn't outspeed, he dies and he gets the Tornadus in, so he can just Tailwind Surging Strikes. And if you're Alex, you probably just Gleam here and maybe Yawn the Fluttermane slot to cover any potential switches. We do actually see Chuppa goes for the switch into the Rillaboom. So if Chuppa loses his Rillaboom, he gets the free switch into Tornadus, which would probably just win him the game. So it comes down to if Alex is targeting into that Rillaboom slot or not. Is he going for the Gleam? He does just Moonblast, but he Moonblasts into the Rillaboom slot. Now the Tornadus is just going to come in. And I actually think that creates a mind game. Because the obvious answer is you just Tailwind and you Surging Strikes for Fluttermane. But if Alex then switches Fluttermane into Salamence, it's probably going to live and it's going to take a lot of damage due to the Rocky Helmet. So this is a very awkward position for both players, where they're going to have to call where does the Surging Strikes go. I think Alex just has to switch in the Salamence on one of the slots, and if he gets it right, he's probably winning the game, and if he gets it wrong, he's losing. I do think if Chuppa calls it wrong, he still has a chance of winning, but it's going to be very tough. You could... So we saw it lock into Moonblast, so it probably can one-shot the Urshifu. So he probably does have to Tailwind to be safe if it stays in. I don't see a way around this mind game. I think you just Tailwind and you Surging Strikes one of them. And it comes down to who calls it right. And it looks like Chuppa has called it right. Alex switches the Salamence in on the Dondozo slot. As Chuppa with the Tailwind Surging Strikes into Fluttermane, this should KO. And then when the Dondozo comes back in, the Surging Strikes is going to go into it again, get the KO, and Salamence cannot win this on its own. So really just Chuppa called the right target that turn, winning him this game too. It would have been... I would have loved to see if Alex called that right and seeing how they adjusted game 3. Neither player decided to switch up what Pokemon they were bringing, despite the fact they switched up their leads. I do feel like Alex should have brought the Rillaboom. I think the Rillaboom could have been really useful here. And it's really interesting to see the fact that Chuppa's Urshifu did basically nothing game 1 and then basically won him game 2 solo. So that was such a good game from both players. Really interesting teams from both. And yeah.
2-0, that looked very commanding from your position. Did you feel confident going into this matchup?
I wasn't sure. It was, in a lot of ways, very similar to the match I lost to Alex in top 8 of the North American International Championships. Very similar, me trying to smash this tailwind, offensive stuff into his yawn, trapping move combo, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it, but I guess my Pokemon were able to pull through.
Which is impressive because this is a team that not only won 2 regional championships, one which you were a part of, but it has had a huge target on its back since then. So did you feel like Alex came prepared with a game plan, and have you been worried about people finding a counter for your team?
A little bit. When I saw that particular Dondozo set with Oblivious to block stuff like Taunt, I was definitely kind of concerned about it, but then I realized, you know, with strong grass type attackers like Rillaboom, I could try and... Alex had a lot of Pokemon that won to Terra at the same time, and that was something I was able to take advantage of.
I think we saw that especially in game number 2, where you had the Dondozo kind of pinned in a position where you would have liked when it went for the Poison Terra, and you were able to take great advantage of that. But your Urshifu went to sleep. Were you worried about it getting knocked out? You ended up committing the Terra too right before it went to sleep.
Yeah, when I was going for that Terra and I realized that his Heatran was attacking that turn instead of switching, I realized, like, oh, I'm really going to need to wake up quickly if I want to deal with this Heatran, because I'm not running, like, high horsepower Rillaboom. The rest of my team is not so great at removing Heatran, but Urshifu pulled through with that turn 1 wake, got rid of Heatran, did the job.
It is kind of nice when that happens, right? Well, looking forward, you're sitting at a record of 9-1 right now, and I know your sights are set on the prize. You have been on such a tear recently with the PC win, the MSS win. Now you got a regional win under your belt too. Can you do it? IC win?
We're going for 5 in a row.
It's going to be amazing to see that happen. One more thing I wanted to ask you about your team is you did make a small adjustment on the team from Toronto to this particular tournament, and that was the item and also the Terra type choice on your Chien-Pao. So what was the reasoning behind that for your team?
So I'm a little sad I didn't get to showcase it on stream because I do love this new Life Orb POW set. I just didn't find Focus Ash activating very much, so I figured why not go for a little bit of extra power. Chien-Pao with Life Orb really is one of the strongest attackers in the format. Still has that great synergy with Urshifu. Terra Poison's another great way to make sure that you're not getting knocked out in one hit by strong attackers like Flutter main. So Chien-Pao has been a really great, you know, mon to change up a little bit.
It feels like Terra Poison has definitely taken over the meta a little bit, and I'm curious to know your thoughts about a good way that, or kind of where you see that going in terms of defensive Terra type.
Yeah, I mean, I know everybody's in love with Terra Dragon right now, and it's really good, but at the same time, I think people are catching on to Terra Dragon a little bit. The Life Orb Chien-Pao is honestly one of my additional ways to punish that Terra Dragon, because I know everybody's using it. I want to hit those Dragon types with a Life Orb Icicle Crash. Please feed them to me. But yeah, Terra Poison's another really great alternative, still giving you resistances to important stuff like Grass type.
Well, hopefully maybe you do get into some matches that do have those Terra Dragons. And looking ahead, we just want to make sure that you are going to get ready for your next match. So I want to give you a final chance to give some shout-outs and just people that are supporting you.
Yeah, shout-outs mostly to Simone. Sad you couldn't be here, but we're going to do it for the Bleakwind gang.
I love it. Good luck to you and the rest of your matches. Hopefully you're able to get those wins under your belt. And casters, back to you.